Welcome, quiet soul. You always hear what others miss. So today you are the listener history has been waiting for. Today you are Arav, a young man in ancient India just stepping into the age of love to experience how strange and wondrous love and marriage could be in this ancient land. A rigidly stratified society, a culture steeped in rituals and codes, women expected to be quiet, marriages arranged by parents. You'd think romance back then was shackled in iron chains, wouldn't you? But no, you'd be dead wrong. And before we dive in, I'd love to know, did anything in this story strike a chord with you? Stir your curiosity. Drop a comment below. Who knows, your thought might just become the little treasure the whole community will want to dig up. And hey, if you're enjoying this, don't forget to like, share, or hit subscribe, because sometimes a single click can send 100 amazing stories rippling outward. You are a newly grown man from the middle class living in a bustling city like Ujjain or Varanasi. You're not a prince, not a priest, just a boy fresh out of Gurukul. Your hair still smells faintly of ceremonial oil, your heart's never loved anyone, and your stomach, well, it's twisting with nerves. Brace yourself. You're about to enter an ancient Indian love story, romantic, hilarious, scented with betel, leaves, love bites, and just the right amount of heartbreak. That day your mother sends you to the market for turmeric and lotus flowers. You've just returned from Gurukul, your hair still heavy with the fragrance of your adulthood ceremony, your mind still tangled in verses of the Upanishads you barely memorized. On paper you're a man now, but really you're still just a kid who knows how to hold a stylus, but has no idea how to hold someone's hand. She presses a woven basket into your hand, tells you to get fresh turmeric, firm, not mushy, and unopened lotus buds for the Lakshmi offering tomorrow. You plan to go quick, come back quick, you're hungry, it's hot, and nothing about this trip seems special. Until you see her. Not her, the mythic damsel. Not the woman you saw painted on temple walls, round shoulders, glowing skin, perfectly combed hair. No, she's wearing a dusty-coloured sari braid slung over one shoulder. Old bronze bangles on her wrists that clink softly as her fingers skim the trays of flowers. And her eyes, yes, her eyes glance past you only once, just lightly, like someone tapping the side of a clay pot, yet something inside you shatters. You freeze between two stools, still holding a turmeric root. Your heart, which for 18 years has only been pumping blood, suddenly speaks up. Not with drums or flutes, not with divine thunder like in temple ceremonies, but with a frantic knocking, like a child banging on someone's door, begging to come in out of the rain. Do you hear anything? No. Do you see anything but her? Also no. You only know that something inside you has shifted. She smiles, not at you, at the lotus vendor. But you notice the tiniest crease between her eyebrows, and that's it. Game over. You panic, you sweat, you don't understand why your feet feel glued to the tiled floor. You want to say something, anything, but your mouth goes on strike. And as she walks away, her shadow seems to linger longer than her body. You stay there a few more minutes, pretending to choose a flower. The old vendor asks, "Young man, how many shall I pack?" You answer, "Any bloom that she touched." She chuckles, and you know you're no longer who you were. Back home, you're strangely quiet. You don't tell anyone you saw her, not because you're hiding it, but because you don't know what to call that feeling. What is it, infatuation or love? No way, you can't fall in love from one glance, can you? You try reciting your evening mantras, but no matter where you are in the chant, her image barges in. Om Namah Shivaya. You close your eyes and see her choosing flowers. You open your eyes, the words are gone. You never truly understood what the teachers meant when they spoke of Karma, the god of love who shoots arrows that drive people mad until today. Now you believe. Oh yes, you really do. You skipped dinner. Your mother looked at you and asked, "Are you running a fever?" You nodded, but not the kind of fever she meant. This one burned gently somewhere between your heart and your head. That night you couldn't sleep. You didn't imagine her calling your name. No cheesy dreams, no dramatic fantasies. You just kept replaying the way she brushed her hair back, touched the flowers, furrowed her brows. You sat up, reached for your wax tablet to write a few verses, but nothing took shape. Your thoughts were chaos. You didn't know what you wanted. You only knew one thing: you needed to see her again. And the next day you went to the market. No one sent you. You didn't need a reason. You told your mother the turmeric from yesterday was bruised. A clumsy lie. But who cares? You just needed to be there, same time and same spot, and hope. She came. This time she wasn't holding flowers, just a few sprigs of neem leaves. She was with a friend. You didn't dare look too long, but you saw that smile again and you heard her laugh. It chimed softly like silver bangles colliding in a dream. You said nothing, just dipped your head slightly. She saw you. She didn't nod, she didn't smile. But her eyes, yes, her eyes, they didn't glance past you this time. They paused, for a second, then she turned away. You stood there, a slow fire kindling in your chest. Not enough to burn, but enough to keep you warm. You started to imagine, what if you heard her speak to you? What if you knew what to say back? What if you knew how to hold on to that gaze the next time? From that moment you knew you'd have to learn to love, learn to understand, learn how people flirted in this so-called old-fashioned time. You had no skills, no poetry worth reading, no gifts in hand, but you did have a heart beating out of rhythm and a very clear instinct. Love had knocked on your door, and you couldn't pretend not to hear it. The next morning you volunteered to go to the market again. Your mother raised an eyebrow. Arav. Since when do you enjoy squeezing through sweaty turmeric vendors? You didn't answer. You just smirked, picked up the woven basket and walked out the door like a thief, returning to the scene of the crime hoping to steal back your own heart. You walked quickly, but inside every step felt slow. As if your breath was winding up for a moment you didn't dare believe would happen again. You reached the same stall, same time, and there she was. No more lotus flowers today. She was browsing bracelets. You didn't have time to think. Instinct and a bit of advice from older boys who'd loved before you told you move in. Not too fast, not clueless. Just be present close but not desperate. You strolled up casually pretending to browse, letting your fingers brush over a delicate silver bangle carved with curling patterns like Yamuna's river swells during monsoon. It was cold to the touch. Your insides, however, were on fire. And just then her voice, light, like a wind chime, floated over to you. "Hey, that's a beautiful bangle. Are you buying it for your mother or your lover? I like the one you're holding." You jolted. Your heart pounded 3 confused beats like a drunk drummer on festival night. In your head you screamed, "Holy gods, she's talking to me." You'd imagined this moment before. You'd thought you'd respond with a metaphor, with the moonlight and destiny. Reality was less poetic. If you like it." Your face flushed so hard it felt like you were sitting under a fire ritual. You weren't sure if what you said even made sense. But she laughed, that kind of soft ripple laugh that felt like a leaf touching water. Light but widespreading. She tilted her head, eyes sparkling with mischief. "So I can have it then?" "Don't tell me you're just out here practicing how to flirt in a marketplace." You cleared your throat, trying to recover a shred of dignity that had clearly fallen somewhere between the silver bangles. "No, I just thought it would suit someone with small wrists and a smile like yours." You instantly wanted to punch yourself. That sounded like a cheap street vendor's pitch. But she laughed louder this time. And that's when you noticed her scent something between early morning jasmine, a trace of sandalwood clinging to her sari, and the fresh turmeric still on her fingertips. You wished you could bottle that moment and label it the smell of talking to your crush for the first time. The bangle seller looked at you both, raising an eyebrow with a knowing smile. "Just take 2 bangles, young man, 1 for each of you. Make it a pair." She shot the woman a mock glare, but her lips kept curling into a smile. You, on the other hand, pulled out your money like a man confessing a crime. She took the bangle and tucked it away, and your hand was still shaking. You didn't know if it was a gift or a souvenir that would haunt you for days. All you knew was that on your way home you couldn't remember which street you took. You could only remember the smile of the girl who asked whether you were buying for your mother or your lover. And you swore to every god you knew a question that simple shouldn't still make your heart stumble like this. You still didn't understand how someone like you, the boy who once stammered through the first verse of the Rig Veda, whose hands shook while writing on a wax tablet, could possibly return home with her laughter tucked in your pocket. She accepted the bangle. She laughed, and you went home with your head buzzing like someone had set off a drum right inside your skull. You didn't sleep that night, not from confusion, but from excitement. And then, as if the universe had it scripted, the next day was holy. You remembered what your teacher had said during a special class the year before, when the only lesson was, if you act like a fool on Holi, you'll stay a fool for the rest of the year. Holi, the festival of colours, yes, but also the festival of opportunity. For a brief day, social barriers melted. The unmarried could play. Boys and girls smeared in colour could touch without scandal. And above all, as ancient texts like the Kama Sutra and Sangam poetry claim, it was the golden hour for romance. You dressed more carefully than usual. Not flashy, but neatly wrapped in a secure dhoti. You even applied a bit of jasmine oil in your hair because your teacher said it was lucky. And because she smelled like that once, you carried a palmful of red powder, and you had no idea what to do with it, until you saw her. She wore a pale green sari with red trim, not flashy but oddly radiant in the chaotic crowd. She held a handful of powder too, and she was laughing not at you, at someone else. But you saw that smile and your heart did that thing again, like watching a lotus petal fall into a pond, ordinary, yet inexplicably stirring. You walked closer, didn't say anything. You remembered something from the Mritya Kartika. A true flirt says little, just enough to make the other want to speak. You raised your hand, about to dust a little colour on her cheek, but your hand trembled. You hesitated because you didn't want to paint anything on her skin without permission. Some old-school Gurukul manners still clung to you. She looked at you. Then out of nowhere, whoosh, she flung her entire handful of red powder onto your shoulder. Now you have to retaliate, she teased. Don't want to lose face in front of the whole town, do you? You laughed, but your hand still didn't move. I'm not great at revenge, you admitted. She squinted, mock suspicious. But you're great at sneaky glances. It's holy people don't watch, they act. You blushed. But thank the gods your hand finally obeyed. You drew a line of red powder across her cheek gently, but your fingers touched her skin. For the first time, warm, soft, and suddenly every sacred verse you'd ever memorized vanished from your head. She whispered, "Are you planning to stay quiet forever?" You swallowed hard. "No, I'm just shy. You seem to know how to tease. I'm not used to this." She smiled softly. "I know a few shy guys. They stopped being shy after losing a poetry duel and having to sing in the middle of the market." You blinked. "A poetry duel that was Gurukul student territory. You were made for this. And if I win," you asked, "then I'll call you my lover for 3 days." You nearly forgot how to breathe, but on the outside you played it cool, and if I lose, she grinned, "then you have to fold me a betel leaf, 1 per day." You laughed, but your heart stirred because you remembered something from the Kama Sutra. A clever woman doesn't ask directly. She plays, she invites, she waits to be understood. And you understood. She wasn't teasing for fun, she was teasing to allow you in, to create a space where you could enter without force. Hurley went on drums, beating people, shouting, clouds of coloured powder floating through the air, like flower petals caught in the wind. But for you, from that moment on, the world narrowed to 2 people, one who laughed and one who was learning to laugh along. That night when you got home, collar still smudged, red fingers tinged green from powder, you hadn't washed off, your mother asked, "Was Holi fun?" You nodded. Did someone throw colour at your heart? You didn't answer. You just smiled. Then you pulled a betel leaf from your pocket, bought hastily on your way home, and for the first time in your life began learning how to fold it. Not because a teacher had assigned it, but because a girl had challenged you to a poetry duel. After Holi, you stopped sneaking glances. You looked her straight in the eye, at least once a day. She didn't look straight at you, but she knew you were watching. That kind of knowing where someone pretends not to notice just enough to make your heart sting like it's been rubbed with raw turmeric. You and she started seeing each other often. Not by appointment, just accidentally sharing the same space. The water well, the temple gate, the bracelet stall. Then one evening, after singing during the full moon celebration, she asked you to stay back away from the crowd. "I haven't been sleeping lately," she said. "My head's full of dumb poetry. Does that happen to you?" You nodded. Didn't dare mention that you'd even dreamed of her getting mad at you for folding the betel leaf wrong. She lowered her head, voice smaller. "Now, I hate going home late. I hate stopping when I don't want to stop. If I told you I didn't want to go back tonight, would you understand?" You couldn't think of anything except the word yes. You and she started living together. No ceremony, no rituals, just from that night on, she stayed at your place more often than not. Your room wasn't big, but it was clean. It had books, a single oil lamp just enough for her to read poetry by. And it had you clumsy as a newborn calf trying to make her laugh when she got mad that your curry was too spicy. Honestly, in ancient Indian culture, this wasn't unusual at all. Kalavud, the term for a premarital live-in relationship, is well documented in Tamil Sangam literature. It wasn't forbidden. In fact, it was considered a trial period to test emotions, temperaments, and even beetle folding skills. Even the Kama Sutra encouraged women to live with potential partners to see if they were truly compatible emotionally and physically. You didn't reread those old texts. You lived them, fully. In the morning, she folded your shawl. At night, you lit the lamp so she could comb her hair. One evening, she asked you to write her a poem. You said writing poetry when you're sitting this close is the hardest thing in the world. She laughed. "Because I distract you." You shook your head. "Because everything's already become a poem. There's nothing left to write." Was that cheesy? Absolutely, but she blushed. And you felt like Lord Vishnu himself had given you a personal blessing. But like all beautiful stories, family eventually found out. Your mother was the first to suspect, of course. Not because you changed, but because your clothes suddenly smelled better, were folded neater, and the towel stack in the corner had a strange, unfamiliar colour. One morning she knocked on your door. She walked in just as your lover ducked under the blanket. She saw a single long strand of hair draped across the pillow. She said nothing. She poured you a cup of water, set it down, and left. But after that day, the way she looked at you changed, half suspicious, half like, "Yeah, kid, I've been there." But your lover's family wasn't so quiet. Her father was a painting teacher, a man who lived by his reputation where gossip could chip away at his honour like rust on bronze. One day a neighbour casually mentioned seeing his daughter walking back from the North Street at dawn. He didn't slam the table, but he didn't speak for 2 days. Then he called her in, handed her a stack of paper and said, "Draw me something, anything you want. If your hand trembles, I'll know." She told you this later, and you were scared. Cracks began to appear, not because you stopped loving each other, but because in this society love simply wasn't enough. Your old teacher, the one who taught you poetry, philosophy, and the art of reading a woman's gaze, pulled you aside during the Dussera festival. He took you behind the crowd and said quietly, "I'm not against love, but don't mistake living together for being truly committed. I've seen couples share a bed for a year and still not understand each other like one honest question could." You were silent. He looked at you, then patted your shoulder. "Ask her. Ask if she sees a future. Don't guess, don't daydream. Ask for real." You went home. She was asleep, her hair draped across your forehead like a silken veil. You wanted to ask her, but your mouth wouldn't open, because you were afraid. Afraid she might say, "I'm not sure." And if she did, you didn't know what would be left of you. She'd once said, "If you fold one leaf every day and one day fold it without tearing, maybe I'll think about something more lasting." You nodded then. It sounded like a joke, but the next morning you started, for real. Leaf 1 torn at the edge. Leaf 10 folded inside out looked like a funnel. Leaf 21 hands trembling as you folded it, because that day she'd stormed out without saying why. Leaf 34 beautiful, untorn, but you'd accidentally bitten a tiny dent into it while deep in thought a bad habit. The next morning you saw her open the small wooden box by the bed. Inside leaf 34 nestled among dried flower petals next to a thin sheet of paper you'd never seen. She pulled out the paper and smiled. "I dipped this in turmeric water the other day and left it in the sun. Now hold it over the lamp and see what shows up." You did. An ink emerged, her handwriting fine and slanted like a stray lock of hair. "We don't love someone because they fold us down, because they folded it right. We love them because they keep folding even when it tears." You were speechless. In that one moment 100 things rushed through your mind, but your throat let out only a single breath. Then she placed the beetle leaf, yes, the one with your accidental bite, back into the box. Quietly, no explanation, no questions. Just a look, as if to say love is keeping even the imperfect things so long as they came from you. And from that moment on, you started to understand this might not stop at just living together. It was becoming something deeper, but how deep it wasn't yours alone to decide. You loved her with everything you had, romantic verses, sincere compliments, small gifts snuck from the marketplace, a ceramic bracelet, a bottle of perfume made from sandalwood resin. You thought gentleness is enough, honesty will move her. What you didn't know. Sometimes people don't leave because you're not good enough. They leave because you love them as if there's nothing left in them to discover. She once told you, "I like people who keep me curious, people who make me guess what surprise they'll bring today." But you misunderstood. You thought surprise meant another poem, another reading of the Bhagavad Gita by the oil lamp, a wilted flower kept from the day before because you were too afraid it'd die before you could hand it to her. And then she began to sit quietly when you read poetry. No more playful interruptions. You kept reading. She kept listening. But between you two there was now a thin crack of water, silence slowly cooling. Then one day she didn't come home like usual. You panicked, ran to the market looking for her, found one of her friends. They said, "She's tired. She wants to be alone." You bought her favourite sweet pudding, waited outside her house, knocked, handed it over. Said, "I just wanted you to eat something sweet." She took it, said nothing, her eyes neither sad nor angry, just distant, like you were someone she used to know very well whose name was now fading at the edges of her memory. You spiraled, did more, longer poems, more gifts. You copied an entire passage from the Mahabharata onto a palm leaf, a task that took you the whole night. She only looked at it and whispered, "I used to love you because you were simply you. Now you're trying so hard it scares me." You didn't understand. You thought, "What's scary about love? I'm just trying my best." But you forgot people don't fall in love with flames that burn endlessly. They love a lamp, steady, soft, one that dims when it needs to. And then one day you came home and saw her packing. You asked, "Where are you going?" She didn't look at you. "I'm not going far, just stepping back to be myself again. You love me like you're drowning me in warm water. It's not cold, but I can't breathe." You stood silent. She turned to go. Didn't take much. Just the half-embroidered handkerchief you once stitched still with her name misspelled. And you realized some love stories don't end in betrayal, they end in predictability. They don't die from anger. They die when one person loves so much, they forget to leave space for the other to miss them. She didn't give you warning, but you knew. You saw it in the days she came home later. In the nights she stopped asking, "Did you finish folding yet?" In the sighs she swallowed before they ever reached her lips. You didn't blame her. How could you blame someone who no longer felt like she belonged in that room? The day she moved out, you asked only, "Are you taking the wooden box with you?" She nodded. You didn't ask for it back. You didn't ask whether it still held the old beetle leaf or the piece of paper once written with turmeric ink. Because you knew when someone takes a memory with them, it means they still want to keep a part of you, and that somehow was enough. What came next were hollow days. You woke up without the sound of her rinsing cloth at the well. No more footsteps light as breeze across the floor. No more accidental shoulder brushes when the two of you poured tea together. You folded the blanket, opened the door, but no one stepped in anymore. You didn't know what to do with the hours that followed. You tried writing poetry, but the words felt scattered like a bowl of sweet pudding long past its flavour. You tried going to the market, but found yourself glancing toward the old bracelet stall, then turning away quickly like a thief who'd stolen a memory. You didn't cry, you just felt empty. One day you ran into your old teacher at the temple courtyard. He didn't ask what happened the way most people do. He simply said, "You know, it's not losing love that hurts most. It's losing the version of yourself that existed while you were in love. You used to be joyful, someone who woke up each morning with purpose. Now you're just surviving." You sat silently for a while, then exhaled. "And you understood to love someone again, you must first relearn how to love yourself." So you began, not to fill the emptiness, but to rebuild the foundation. You visited your parents, you travelled to a region where no one knew who you once loved. You learned to paint on palm leaves using turmeric paste to play the bamboo flute to distill sandalwood resin into perfume not to give to anyone but just so you could smell something you liked. You remembered a line from ancient Tamil literature. When a woman walks out of your life, it isn't the end of your story, it's just a change in rhythm. The song goes on with slower tempo and deeper lyrics. That year Holly came again. You hadn't planned to join, but on the morning of the festival your mother placed a vivid bouquet on the altar and said, "Colour isn't for the happy, it's for those learning to come alive again." You stepped outside, stood in the crowd, you weren't looking for anyone, you weren't hoping to be seen. You just let it happen. Colour dust touching your skin, sunlight brushing your eyelids, and your heart after all those long days finally brushing back up against itself. You didn't meet her with a thunderbolt, but with a quiet glance. A girl in a purple sari holding a vial of golden turmeric ink. She was laughing, not scolding at a child who had just spilled colour powder in her hair. You walked past, not intending to say anything, but she turned, held out the vial to you. "Can you hold this for a second? My hands are all powder." You took it. Turmeric smeared your fingers. She saw it and smiled. There's a little Indian folk tale they say if someone gets turmeric ink on your hand during Holi, you two won't part ways easily. You chuckled. "Are you casting a spell on me?" She winked. "No, I'm just quoting folklore. What you believe is up to you." You stood still for a beat, vial still in hand, and inside you something stirred, not a wildfire, but a coal ember, warm. And you thought, maybe this time I won't love like a storm. Maybe I'll love like a hearth fire. Small, but steady enough to make someone want to stay a while. That night you dipped your fingers into the turmeric ink and wrote your first line in months. Not because you could replace someone, but because with you I don't have to try forgetting anyone at all. You placed the leaf in your palm, and it felt calm. And you knew this time you're not loving to prove anything. You're loving simply because you can. And that's when you finally grew up.